Ready to begin?
Yes, sir.
Test, test. Call the meeting to order. American Canyon Fire Protection District Board meeting for September 24, 2024. Please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
Of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Board Member Joseph,
Here.
Board Member Washington,
Here.
Vice Chair Oro,
Here.
Chair Garcia,
Here. Board Member Albadamas is excused.
Board Member Albadamas is excused. Thank you.
Okay, report on closed session, confirmation of reportable action. We had no closed session this evening. So there's nothing to report. We'll move on. You have the CERT Month proclamation. Pal, are you going to receive it? Yes. All right, please come to the podium. American Canyon Fire Protection District proclaiming the month of October 2024 as National Community Emergency Response Team Month. Whereas the Community Emergency Response Team, CERT, program established by FEMA plays a vital role in preparing our nation's community for emergencies and disasters by empowering individuals to become skilled volunteers. And whereas CERT volunteers are trained to perform essential services during emergencies, including fire safety, light search and rescue, team organizations, disaster medical operations, in support of local first responders. And whereas the CERT program promotes a culture of preparedness and resilience by fostering strong partnerships between emergency management agencies, first responders, and the public, helping to create safer, more resilient communities. And whereas the dedication of CERT volunteers exemplifies the spirit of civic responsibility and community cooperation as they commit their time and effort to protect their neighbors and assist in times of need. And whereas CERT programs offer an individual opportunity for individuals to learn life-saving skills, contribute to the safety and well-being of their communities, and play an active role in disaster preparedness and response. And whereas National CERT Month provides an opportunity to raise awareness about the importance of volunteerism and the significant contributions CERT volunteers make across the country. And whereas the American Canyon Fire District, in collaboration with the local, state, and federal agencies, encourages all residents to recognize the importance of CERT volunteers and their role in safeguarding the community. Now, therefore, I, Leon Garcia, Chair of the Board, do hereby proclaim October 2024 as Community Emergency Response Team CERT Awareness Month, and urge all residents to recognize the invaluable contributions of CERT members, to participate in CERT training opportunities, and to continue fostering a culture of preparedness within our community. Congratulations. Thank you. Thank you for what you're doing out there.
After he speaks.
If you have some comments, then we'd like to take a picture afterwards.
Good evening, Board and Chief, Assistant Chief. I just want to, on behalf of all our members, want to thank you for your continued support of the CERT program as we just had our 7th year anniversary of being a group together. And we just continue to train and be prepared for whatever comes our way. I also want to thank all of firefighters for helping and doing classes with us. It's a family environment,
Thank you. All right. Let's get everybody together for photo op.
I think we need to turn your mic or the podium mic on. There we go.
Very good. You know, just proud to be a member of the American Canyon CERT team and do some remarkable things. And we've had some very challenging times at times out there, particularly with the fires a few years ago. But, you know, we keep training, and that keeps our skill set up so we can respond as we need to. Anyway, so thank all of you for the work you do with that. Moving on, next proclamation is Fire Prevention Month. Here we go. The American Canyon Fire Protection District proclaiming the month of October 2024 as Fire Prevention Month. Whereas the American Canyon Fire Protection District is committed to ensuring the safety and security of all those living in and visiting our community. And whereas fire poses a serious threat to life and property, and homes are the location where people are at greatest risk from fire. And whereas working smoke alarms are critical first line of defense against fire-related injuries and fatalities, cutting the risk of dying in reported home fires by half. Whereas the National Fire Protection Association reports that 3 out of 5 homes fire deaths occur in homes without functioning smoke alarms or alarms that are not working properly. And whereas this year's Fire Prevention Month campaign, Smoke Alarms, Install, Test, Replace, seeks to educate residents on the essential role of working smoke alarms in keeping our community safe. And whereas residents are urged to install smoke alarms in every sleeping room, outside each separate sleeping area, and on every level of the home. And whereas residents are encouraged to test their smoke alarms monthly to ensure that they are functioning properly. And whereas residents are reminded to replace smoke alarms at least every 10 years, and immediately if they're not working when tested. And whereas advancement in smoke alarm technology, including features such as 10-year sealed batteries, have made it easier than ever to maintain and rely on these life-saving devices. And whereas the American Canyon Fire Protection District, alongside the NFPA and other fire safety organizations, is dedicated to providing resources, education, and tools to help residents implement successful fire prevention strategies in their homes. Now, therefore, be it resolved that I, Leon Garcia, Chair of the Board of Directors of the American Canyon Fire Protection District, hereby proclaim October 2024 as Fire Prevention Month and urge all residents to participate in this year's campaign by installing, testing, and replacing their smoke alarms to protect themselves, their loved ones, and their community from the devastating effects of fire. Thank you. thank you for what you do.
very much.
Here you go.
Awesome, thank you.
Oh, here, I got it. I got it.
Yeah, please come to the photo. Just photo. Yeah. Please, your photo. Where do we go? Want to do a picture? Let's go a picture. I volunteered with a group recently, I think it was last summer sometime, Rebuild Together, Solano County. There's a mobile home park across from the Transit Authority. It's very low income. And they gave us smoke detectors, fire alarms to put up. And I was surprised how many of them were non-functioning. Just really, you need to check it. Comments? No, next one, okay.
Second, I agree.
No, Chair, just getting them queued up for the next proclamation.
Cardiac arrest? Yeah, I just would really encourage folks to check the batteries in it, and some of them were quite outdated. So, that 10-year battery makes a lot of difference. Not constantly having to check to make sure it's working. Okay. And we are Sudden Cardiac Awareness Month Proclamation. American Canyon Fire Protection District proclaiming the month of October 2024 as Sudden Cardiac Arrest Awareness Month. Whereas sudden cardiac arrest, ACA, is the leading cause of death in the United States, claiming more than 350,000 lives each year. And whereas sudden cardiac arrest occurs when the heart unexpectedly stops beating, cutting off blood flow to the brain and other vital organs, can happen to anyone at any time, regardless of age or physical health. And whereas immediate intervention through cardiopulmonary resuscitation, CPR, and the use of automatic external defibrillator, AEDs, can significantly increase the chances of survival in cases of sudden cardiac arrest. And whereas raising awareness about the importance of learning CPR, recognizing the symptoms of sudden cardiac arrest, and making AEDs readily available in public spaces can save lives. And whereas the American Canyon Fire Protection District is dedicated to educating the public on the prevention and emergency response to sudden cardiac arrest. And whereas Sudden Cardiac Arrest Awareness Month provides an opportunity for individuals, businesses, schools, and community organizations to come together and promote heart health, life-saving skills, and preparedness in the event of an emergency. Now, therefore, be it resolved that I, Leon Garcia, Chair of the Board of Directors of the American Canyon Fire Protection District, hereby proclaim October 2024 as Cardiac Arrest Awareness Month. Thank you. Right, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, and all your emails.
Oh, photo, yes. We're doing a photo.
Picture takers.
So Chief Bellier, how many responses did we get to our sudden cardiac arrest?
Ooh, that's a great question.
Yeah.
You caught me flat-footed. I'm not sure exactly how many we do. But I will point out that one of our newer paramedics, and
Yeah.
been here a little over a year now, Mr. Bensman, was on a roll for a while. He had 3 cardiac arrest calls that he responded to, and on those 3, in a short period of time, 3 of those patients had regained their pulse by the time they dropped them off delivered
right.
them to the emergency room. So
All right.
cardiac arrest is something that we do respond to fairly frequently. I don't have the exact
No.
numbers.
No, I just didn't want any hard data, just kind of some sense that that's it.
Yeah, and
Common or,
it's relatively common.
Yeah.
Not an everyday thing, thankfully.
yeah.
But we do experience here in Napa County, especially with our crews doing the hands-only CPR training to the community and so forth. Napa County has statistically a higher than the national average for survivability of patients during cardiac arrest events. So we have a pretty good system here. And, you know, we talk a lot about our paramedics and our paramedic program, but it truly takes the entire team when we have those events. So our EMTs are just as valuable and really a critical component to our service delivery when it comes to those high acuity medical calls, not just the paramedics. It really does truly take a whole team for those events. So
Absolutely, yeah.
we're very blessed and thankful for the quality of service that our firefighters provide, and but we're also very thankful that we don't have cardiac arrest events that we respond to every day.
Well, that's part of that is people more awareness and living healthier lives, but you have to have the skill set when you need it, and I really appreciate what all our EMTs do with that. Paramedics, it's a great skill set for the city, particularly when we have some parts of the city, the older population more inclined to that event. So thank you all.
Real quick, yeah. And I was going to mention real quick that just about a year ago, I know I mentioned it in the past, that I had a friend at my home, and I got to watch you guys bring him back to life. And by the time he got to the hospital, the doctors told him, his wife, and his whole family that had it not been for the hard work that you guys did out in the field, he would not have been able to survive. So you guys are a true testimony to the training that's involved in it and saving lives. And I know a lot of times by the time you're done with them, dropping them off at the hospital, you don't get to see that part of how you just actually saved someone's life. So thank you. You're true heroes.
Thank you. Board, please rise. Thank you. Okay, we're now to public comment. Anybody from the public wish to comment on any item not on the agenda? Do we have anyone online?
No, Chair.
Okay. Last call for public comment. Seeing none, I will close public comment. We'll move on in our agenda. Any agenda changes, board members? If not, I'll accept the motion for the consent calendar.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Motion second. Roll call, please.
Board Member Joseph?
Yes.
Board Member Washington?
Yes.
Vice Chair Oro?
Yes.
Chair Garcia?
Yes. Thank you, board. We'll move on now to public hearings. Item 9, final operating and capital budget for the American Canyon Fire Protection District for fiscal year 2024-25.
Thank you, Chair. And as we traditionally do, Mr. Campo will be giving you a presentation on our final budget for this fiscal year. So, Ken, take it away.
There we go. Thank you, Chief. Chair Garcia, members of the board. As the Chief mentioned, the item before you this evening is adoption of the final operating and capital budgets for fiscal year 24-25. Fiscal year runs from July 1 of 24 to June 30 of 25. I'll start out by reviewing the final budget, then we'll take a look at the updated financial forecast, and then our recommendation would be to conduct the public hearing and consider adoption of the final budget for fiscal year 25. And feel free to interrupt and if you have any questions. And this is probably going to be fairly brief since we don't have a whole lot of changes from the preliminary budget to the final budget. Just as a reminder, the health and safety code that the fire district operates under requires the adoption of at least a preliminary budget by July 1 of each year, and then a final budget by October 1st of each year. So the board has adopted the preliminary budget. So we'll take a look. We'll first go through, back up. We'll first go through a broad summary overview of the different funds that the district operates under. We'll take a look at the actual operating results from last year, now that we have the unaudited results from last fiscal year. And then we'll take a look at the proposed final budget. And we'll take a look at a little closer detail on revenues and expenditures of each of the funds and discuss any differences from the preliminary budget to final. So we'll get started with looking at the General Operations Fund for the district. This is the fund that accounts for the day-to-day operations. So salaries and benefits for the personnel, supplies, and those sorts of expenditures. As you can see, the actual operating results for 23-24 were pretty close to what we thought they'd be when we did the final budget for last fiscal year. It's about a $20,000 improvement overall. The projected deficit there for fiscal year 24-25, you see $99,000. That is consistent with what we adopted, what you adopted with the preliminary budget. Just as a reminder, when this time last year, when we were looking at the 23-24 budget, we were projecting a deficit of about $105,000. That turned around and ended up being actually a surplus of $125,000 when we got to June 30. So, you know, the projected deficit of $99,000 for this current fiscal year could easily turn around, and we hope it will by the end of the year. Next is the Fire Mitigation Fee Fund. This fund accounts for the collection and expenditure of funds that are intended to mitigate the impacts of new development. So there's not a degradation of service to existing residents, so we want to make sure new development kind of pays its way forward. So those funds are accounted for here. We actually collected, about $182,000, I believe, somewhere, $182,000 for last fiscal year, which was quite a bit less than what we had projected, primarily because there was, not as much development activity, permits issued as we expected. I'll back up and say that we had projected. What we do is since this is all based on the level of development activity, these fees, they could rise and fall with that level of development. So what we do is we look back over the last 5 years and try and average that out to project going forward. Sometimes it's more, sometimes it's less. Last year happened to be less. So it's about the ending balance for 23-24 was about $250,000 less than what we expected. that carries over to the beginning balance for the next fiscal year. And so we'll see how that plays out in our revised projections. I just point out that even though these fees came in lower last year, I don't think it's so much a matter of if they're going to come in, it's when that development activity is going to happen, when builders are going to pull those permits. And I just point out, typically the only expenditures we would have for this fund is a transfer over to the capital projects fund, where we actually account for the spending for new apparatus and equipment and maintenance of facilities and those sorts of things. Okay, the next fund is the Fleet Facilities and Equipment Fund, or the FF&E fund as we call it. This is really the district's capital projects fund, which accounts for the accumulation of funds that are used for the acquisition and maintenance of facilities and apparatus and equipment. Spending was about roughly $30,000 or so less than what we expected it to be, so we ended up with an ending balance that was a little higher, which again carries over to a higher beginning balance for the 24-25 year. Okay, now we'll start looking a little closer at the revenues and expenditures for the final budget versus the preliminary budget. Really, the only change here is the addition of $74,000 of strike team reimbursement. This is the money the state reimburses the district for when it sends its firefighters out on statewide strike team responses. The $74,000 represents actual billings to date. This is for strike team activity that occurred earlier in the year. So we're confident. We usually don't budget for this revenue because we don't know if the firefighters are going to be available for strike teams or if there's going to be a need for them. So we typically wait until we get the actual revenue before we try and account for that. So that's really the only change in the overall revenue for the general operating fund. Next is the fire mitigation fee fund that we were just talking about. There was a reduction of about $130,000 in fee revenue from the preliminary budget. Again, as I mentioned earlier, we look back over the last 5 years and use that as the average going forward. Since last year was lower, we revised the estimate down lower for this current fiscal year. Next is the revenue projections for the Fleet Facilities and Equipment Fund. You can see there's an overall increase of about $140,000 there. As discussed in the staff report, it now looks like the new Type 1 engines that the district ordered a number of years ago will actually be in before the end of this fiscal year. Yeah, finally, yeah. Hopefully they'll be here before we finish paying for them. But so this is, we've estimated about $125,000 for upfitting, which is purchasing the lights for the new engines, the emergency equipment, safety equipment the equipment that we can't repurpose from the older engines. Fortunately, we have funds set aside in escrow when we did the lease financing transaction to pay for these. So those funds have been sitting in an interest-bearing account. So we have those funds available to help offset that cost. So you see the increase there in the lease proceeds line of $125,000. The district was also successful in receiving a $10,000 grant from the California Fire Foundation to offset the cost of replacing wildland turnouts for the firefighters. So we added the $10,000 of grant proceeds, And it looks like we should be able to earn some additional interest income, so there's another $5,000 there. So those are the changes from the preliminary budget. Now looking at the expenditures, this is the general operating fund. It's an increase of $74,000. As I mentioned earlier, we had $74,000 of additional revenue for the strike team coming in. So we took a closer look at the overtime budget and thought we needed to enhance that a little further for some work, for overtime related to backfill for an injured worker and some vacancies that we're going to incur between probably until around the first of the year. So we thought we needed to enhance that overtime budget. So we took this $74,000 of additional revenue and plugged that into the overtime budget. So the bottom line for the general fund, as I said earlier, the $99,000 deficit really it hasn't changed. This is the expenditures for the fire mitigation fee fund. We had planned on transferring $200,000 into the capital projects fund to pay for some expenditures there, and that hasn't changed. So fleet facilities and equipment fund budget increased by $125,000. As I mentioned, we added that equipment for the new engines that we believe will be coming in. So that's really the only change there. As a reminder, in the equipment line, we had $72,000 for structural and wildland equipment as part of that equipment line item up there. We're going to be able to offset $10,000 of that cost with that grant from the California Fire Foundation. There's $30,000 for new Lucas and Lucas devices and airway bags. Another $28,000 for this new permitting system that the city is acquiring. This would be the district's share of that. And then other various safety equipment expenditures for hoses and radios, et cetera. Facilities, we have $53,000 budgeted. There's $20,000 there to replace some aging appliances and equipment in the stations. It's probably the largest expenditure there. In the fleet line item, there's $61,000 for anticipated repairs for engines and other apparatus, along with that $125,000 that I mentioned for the new Type 1 engines. We have the lease payments. I mentioned we had proceeds. We did a lease purchase financing. That's over a 7-year period, so that's what the $286,000 is principal and interest on those new Type 1 engines, the annual payment there. And then lease payment of $79,000 for the district's command and other vehicles through the enterprise lease agreement. That hasn't changed. So again, there hasn't really been much of a change from the preliminary budget to the final budget. This is our general operating financial forecast. For those that might not be familiar with this, the blue line across the top represents projected revenues. The red line is projected expenditures. And you can see the district at pretty much a break-even position there through from 23, 24 to about 25, 26. And then as new development comes online and they're paying property taxes, the revenue starts picking up and advancing above the projected expenditures. The green bars represent what we think the ending fund balance will be through each of these years as we go forward. The brick component at the bottom is the restricted contingency reserves, so the rainy day reserve funds of the district. They're restricted in the fact that they can only be used with action from the board. So we can't dip into those rainy day reserve funds. The kind of blue wavy area above that is the district's operating reserve. So that's the unrestricted operating reserve. That's our cash flow that we need to cover expenses between those big property tax payment dates. So the district gets property taxes in April, and then the next one is December. So that's a long stretch. So, we have to pay all the bills each month, pay salaries and benefits to the firefighters. So we have to have that cash available to cover those operating costs. It's what we call the dry period between April and December. And as noted in the staff report, these reserve amounts, those green bars, are deemed adequate to deal with any unforeseen emergencies and give the ability to maintain service levels so there's no disruption in service, or at least minimize any disruptions in the event there's an economic downturn or some other unforeseen impact on the district's finances. So that was a brief look at the final budget versus the preliminary budget. A recommendation to the board is to conduct the public hearing pursuant to the California Health and Safety Code, then entertain any questions from the public or the board, and adopt the final operating and capital budgets for fiscal year 25.
Thank you. Does the board have any questions that they need to have answered at this point?
Yes, I question
Vice Chair
clarification. On the financial summary for the FFE fund. So the ending balance in the budget, there's 95,387.
Right.
Tell me how we refund that account and where the money comes from. That wasn't clear to me. And do we have a target balance every year for a beginning balance?
So we have a capital improvement plan that goes out, I don't know, 10, 12 years or so. And we balance that out with the spending with revenues, the revenues being either transfers from the general operating fund and or transfers from the fire mitigation fee fund. So those are the two primary sources. We have the $50,000 a year from the Napa Logistics Park that goes into that fund. Any sale of surplus assets, one-time monies, we try and put into that fleet facilities and equipment fund. So we don't really maintain a lot of high balance in that fund. And we like I said, we map it out. We map out the capital expenditures over a 10 to 12 year period, and we bring in transfers from the general operating fund or the fire mitigation fee fund to keep that balanced over time. We were able to push out a lot of those transfers by doing the lease purchase financing for those two new engines.
Okay, that's what I was going
That
to
kind
ask.
of
Like how
stretched it out.
Yeah, because I was like, we just bought a $2 million vehicle or whatever it was.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
So-
that's how it's being reflected here, I guess. Yeah.
Yes, you'll see on the expenditure side, the 287,000 a year lease payment for those engines. So we're paying those over 7 years instead of all at once.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Okay. There's no name next to number 6. Who's got that? Is that number 7, Chief Belia? No? I got number 7 going also. Okay. We got, these are the city council flags here. Okay. Now I have Board Member Joseph.
Yes. I think in putting together the preliminary budget, didn't we also kind of make some adjustments, reducing some of the transfers in because it wasn't as essential and so forth? So
Yep, that's correct.
So I often ask this question, given the growth rate in the city, we need to be looking ahead to what plans we need in terms of being able to support that. What's the picture looking like now? I understand Lima's Points is full or filling up. I was over there driving around, checking on a complaint that wasn't justified, as I could find, but I ran into a young couple who bought their house up there off of Newell as you come in. Said their street, a lot of young families with kids. So that also speaks to me. I think I've had conversation with City Manager Jason Hawley about school. You know, at what point are we going to hit that threshold? What's it looking like for the fire district, for what our needs will be?
Well, I appreciate the question. I think there's a couple different layers to it. I think we have a pretty good roadmap for moving forward with the master plan that was done 2 years ago. So that's given us kind of the clear roadmap of where we need to get to by the time the city's built out. Then we take and we look at the budgets and the financial capacity to implement those various stages of what we believe we need to do through the master plan for full build out. So we're at a place where we're still showing some fiscal deficits. We know we're going to start climbing soon. So we're really having to really balance. I kind of use it as the analogy of being on a teeter-totter, where you have development on one side and you have operating expenses on the other, i.e. personnel, salaries, so forth. And we always want to tip a little bit to where it's weighted more on our capacity so that it's in place before the development occurs, right? Mm-hmm. So the board took some pretty courageous steps fiscal year before last with the implementation of the 2 battalion chief positions. We still need a 3rd one, but we're collectively, what we've kind of looked at using, again, the teeter-totter analogy, is we need to let the development catch up a little bit, i.e. the revenues from property taxes, before we push on that 3rd battalion chief position, so that we are still operating in a fiscally responsible manner that is conducive to the longevity and sustainability of the fire district. So the capital improvement plan that Ken mentioned is one of the other aspects of it, where we've mapped out what we believe are all the capital improvements we need over a 10-year period, right? So we kind of have to weigh all those factors together, with obviously the financial capacity being the limiting factor of what we can do. And as the financial capacity increases, those become the windows of opportunity to increase on our operational side. But like I said, I keep going back to the teeter-totter. We don't want to be so heavy on the financial outlay for personnel, salaries, and so forth, that if we do experience a turn down or slow in development, that we're not so far out there, we don't have the ability to recover or to measure our expenses to allow the development to catch up, and in turn, the property tax revenue increase.
Thank you for the analogy. It makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Board members ready for public comment?
Yes, sir.
Public hearing is now open on this matter. Feel free to weigh in.
Thank you.
Well, could pick up on a Jerry Maguire moment, you know, show me the money.
He did.
That's what this is all about, so, okay. Anybody online?
No, Chair.
All right. The last call for public comment. And seeing none, we will close public hearing on this and move back to board for further discussion and desired action.
There's no further discussion. I will make a motion to adopt resolution number 2024-29, a resolution of the Board of Directors of the American Canyon Fire Protection District adopting the final operating and capital budgets, final budget for fiscal year 2024-2025.
I'll second that.
Motion and second. Roll call, please.
Board Member Joseph?
Yes.
Board Member Washington?
Yes.
Vice Chair Oro?
Yes.
Chair Garcia?
Yes. Thank you, board members. Thank you for your presentation, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ken.
Okay, next is our item 10, which is in public hearings. Public hearing on the formation of the American Canyon Fire Protection District Community Facilities District Number 1, Giovannoni Logistics Park, Napa County, California. Chief.
Yes, Chair. At the landowner's request, they've asked that the public hearing be continued to a later date due to some unresolved issues
Okay.
regarding the property.
And is that expected to come before the board in October 22nd? Has any,
That is our hope. However, some of the unresolved issues are outside of our control, so we will be subject to the whim of some other influences that will actually determine
Okay.
when
All
that
right.
can happen.
well, hopefully we getting the information that we all need to make sure that we resolve this matter. All right.
So
So
just, oh, excuse me, to clarify then that we're continuing this to a date uncertain, and we'll have to
Yeah.
re-notice and go through all that. Okay, thank you.
Do we need to take action on continuing to a date uncertain?
Yes.
Would that be your motion, Board Member Joseph?
I would make that motion unless there's any public comment beforehand.
Public comment is open on this?
Okay. Okay, then I'll make a motion, we continue this to a date uncertain.
I'll second.
Do you have anybody online?
No, Chair.
Okay, motion and second. Roll call, please.
Board Member Board Member Joseph,
Yes.
Board Member Washington,
Yes.
Vice Chair Oro,
Yes.
Chair Garcia.
Yes, thank you. Fire Chief report?
Yes, thank you, Chair. First, I'd like to welcome all the board members, members of the audience, members of the public to our Fire Department open house, which will be October 5th. As we have in years past, the first hour will be a quiet hour that is geared towards our friends that are sensitive to light and loud noises. I believe it starts at 11 and will run till early afternoon. We have some, excuse me, firefighter demonstrations and so forth prepared and planned that will help the public get to see a little bit more of an insight of what their firefighters here in American Canyon do, as well as some opportunities for interaction for the public to do some of those things. So it's always a great event. It's always well attended, and I know personally it's my favorite event of the year, just to get out and really welcome the public in, and they get to really see what their firefighters do.
Usually have some fun things for the kids, too.
Yep.
That's good.
Yep. Yep. We try to make it so that it's a fun event for all ages, and
Yeah.
everyone has an opportunity to interact and learn a little bit more about their fire district.
I like that pop-up house with the fire hose. You can
Mm-hmm. Yep.
knock it down.
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
A couple other things of note. Myself and Chief Kern from Napa Fire Department had an opportunity to meet with LAFCO's executive director. I think it was about 2 weeks ago, just to receive an update on the municipal service review that LAFCO is currently conducting for fire and EMS services here in Napa County. That is still moving. It's moving a little bit slower than initially anticipated, but still moving forward. So I think I can speak for all the fire chiefs in the county. We are very interested and excited to see what transpires from that MSR. Then moving to a couple significant trainings that we've conducted over the last month. The first was a joint partnership training with the city of American Canyons Park and Recs. They allowed us to bring in one of our inflatable boats to the pool, and our firefighters were able to train on various rescue techniques and so forth with that boat in a static water environment. It was a well-attended training, and by all accounts, very beneficial for all of our crews. Then we just completed a series of trainings on actual structure, which is somewhat rare that we have the opportunity to have a house or a building where we can go in and do what we call kind of destructive training. In other words, cut holes in the roof, breach walls for firefighter disentanglements and different things. But that was a joint training with the Vallejo Fire Department. The building was in Vallejo, just on the other side of the city limits. So it was a great opportunity because they are such a critical component to our responses for structure fires and significant incidents here in American Canyon, as well as us going down into Vallejo for quite a few incidents through our automatic aid agreement. So it was a very good opportunity for both agencies to train together and actually utilize a building that was scheduled for demolition, that they could actually do those destructive drills. The other component of it that was really good is we are currently in the process of implementing, it's actually going to be being implemented countywide. It's a online tablet-based command and control function program. It's called Tablet Command. It's a program that is really, it's pretty phenomenal, actually. I mean, everything on the tablet, you can read all the notes from the call taker that takes the calls with the 911 caller. You have the ability to, especially on the fire department side, any fire department that's a Tablet Command user, all their resources become available or viewable on maps. So as you're responding to an incident, you can pull up the map, or the BC or the chief officer can, and say, oh, you know, the next due fire engine is 5 minutes out. I can have them grab the hydrant or different things. And then there's once you get into the command and control function where you're actually managing an incident and assigning resources to critical fireground functions instead of, and I'm going to date myself, but the traditional pad and paper. Now all the resources, as they're dispatched, they're automatically populated into that program, and it's literally a drop and drag. And it has the firefighters, the crews on it, and everything. So part of this training, because it was a multi-company training, our battalion chiefs were able to participate and utilize Tablet Command just like they're running an incident, so that they start becoming more familiar with the program and the different features. So it really helped not only at the fire engine level, but also at the command and control with our chief officers being able to utilize Tablet Command and so forth. So it was over a series of several weeks. So it was a pretty good training, and we're again very fortunate to have a good relationship with the Vallejo Fire Department and been able to go down and train with them.
All the great benefits of technology as it
Yeah.
moves forward, you know.
Yep. Yeah, it's truly, it was just as a sidebar, during the large fires they had down in Southern California, you can actually import the fire perimeter maps through this program.
Yeah.
So I was able to pull up the perimeter of the fire with the incident map, and then every Tablet Command resource that was on that fire, I could see where their location was on that fire. Same thing, you know, just we go down to Vallejo for a structure fire, I can pull up Tablet Command and I can see what resources Vallejo has on the fire and where our engines. It's going to be very beneficial as this program gets rolled out here in the county and so forth. So
Yeah, I imagine it makes response more effective, more, you know.
Yep.
You have the resources and know where they are, and not wondering. Yeah.
So that really, unless there are any other questions, that concludes
Any
my
questions from
report
the
for
board
this
members?
evening.
No, sir.
Thank you, Will. Ready to move on to chair, board comments, committee reports, and future agenda items.
I have a few announcements of events coming up. So
Okay.
First of all, this Friday and Saturday at the Boys and Girls Club, the Kiwanis Club in American Canyon and Napa are coming together to install some play equipment at that facility.
All right.
If you're able-bodied and want to help, you're free to come on down at 9 a.m. on Friday or Saturday, and we'll put you to work. Also, following week, October 5th, same time as the fire, well, before the fire open house, is the fourth annual Pumpkin Path at Wetlands Edge, which not only will have the Art Foundation having our pumpkins out that you can paint, the 4-H will have pumpkins for sale, and Park Foundation will be out there with their trailer and coffee. So that's happening. And then after you finish the firehouse or fire district open house, you can go over to the Holy Family Church for the Manila Munchies from 3 to 5 on October 5th. So you'll just be busy as all get out on October 5th. Thank you.
So that's Friday, Saturday, 27th, 28th?
27th and 28th for helping to install playground equipment.
Okay. All right, well, yeah, so the fall activities. And next we'll be getting ready for Halloween and trick or treat. Okay, is there anything further? Future agenda items?
No, sir.
I want to take a moment here. Sad in many ways. Before adjourning, we lost a very good friend and a very honorable man, Brad Honorato, who was Deputy Chief of Staff for Congressman Mike Thompson for many, many years. If we've met Mike in this area as our congressman, I think Brad probably goes back to when he was a state senator, Mike Thompson. And a man who gave a lot from his heart. He really cared about community and people and worked to make life better for all of us. So I'd like to remember Brad Honorato. If we take a moment of silence, please. Thank you. Thank you. Board members, we concluded our business for the evening. We are now adjourned. Thank you all.
Good night, American Canyon.